It's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials, as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And it has been a while since I actually sold any of my baked goods, but this is how I got everything done for a ginormous fundraiser at my school. So just to be really clear about what I did, I donated all of my time, I purchased all of the ingredients, and I did get reimbursed for that, but other than that, all of the profits went directly to my school's fine arts program, specifically the music and band program, so that we could afford some sound equipment. It's no secret that the public education system across all of North America is probably severely underfunded, so I thought to myself, what can I do to keep this fine arts program going? And if you've watched my channel before, you know that I am a huge theater person, and I was directing a musical at the same time as doing this. So I'm going to be giving you some pertinent tips on how to be really successful with a baking pre-sale and how to make things easy on yourself as well. Cake pops are one of those things that are super easy to make, and I can make a lot of them ahead of time. So what I did was I rolled all of those cake balls that you saw before, and pro tip, use ganache instead of buttercream if you want to avoid oil leakage, and then I was able to freeze those. Now you don't want to freeze your cake pops though until they're all rolled out and then chilled flat, and then you can place them into a container and freeze them and stack them. If you don't do it that way, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up having misshapen cake balls. And those can stay in the freezer for a while. Now, I only froze mine for a week or so, but you can do this for up to a month and it's going to be totally fine. You could probably even push it further than that. In today's video, I am going to be showing you everything I did in the order that I did them in, so you'll notice that things jump around a little bit, but this is how it works when you're prepping for things. So the next thing that you can prep in advance are sugar cookies. Now, I do like making sugar cookies because of this. However, the decorating does have to be done kind of last minute, and I made sure not to do any custom pre-orders for this. Even with a standard cookie design that's fairly simplistic, I find that sugar cookies take me way too much time, and I am pretty quick at sugar cookies, but this is definitely low on my list of things that I would ever put on a pre-order. As it was, I limited the amount of sugar cookies that were available in total. I think I only made about 50. In turn, because these sugar cookies were not available for pre-order, it made it seem like a very special limited edition thing because it was only on the concession stands. Keep in mind, I did have to make things for pre-orders as well as have enough items for concession for 6 shows. I sometimes find it's difficult to price sugar cookies at a fair value because it takes so much time, but it looks less impressive sometimes to the average person than a cupcake. So we were able to price these very well this time around, and by the time we hit the second show, we sold out. I knew without a doubt 100% that I was going to make macarons. Now, this might not be something that is in your arsenal, but this is definitely something that I love to make. I'm very consistent with it, and you can make a lot at once. The batch of macarons that I make always makes 80 at once, which is a great number. And so I really ended up making about 6 batches of macarons. Now, I did have some failed shells in there, but luckily most of them turned out. I only had one batch that really failed me, and you can freeze macarons for up to 3 months. You'll see that we sold those for a pretty penny, and later on in the video, I will talk about what really helped drive our sales. As those macarons were setting, I continued to work on the decorating of the sugar cookies, and the decorating of the sugar cookies is something that was the first thing on my list. I really wanted to get this done and over with. The reason is because I wanted to be able to have those sugar cookies harden on top and make sure that there was no chance of indentation, because I find that that is the biggest issue with sugar cookies. So I made sure to have those done very early on in the show week. I did the majority of the baking myself, but I did have a few helpers, and it's always great to use your helpers for those tasks that don't necessarily need a high level of skill, but are ultra important. So my husband was helping me match up all of the macaron shells. He also helped me bake some of the cupcakes. I also had another teacher friend help bake cupcakes, and then I had another baker friend that just focused on making all of the buttercream for me. I did have to end up making some of the buttercream myself, but having them make those first kind of 15 batches of buttercream really helped. And I made both Italian and French buttercream just to save on ingredients. Because I made so many macarons, obviously I had a lot of egg yolks left over, so then I was able to utilize all of it. And just to give you some perspective again on how long it really takes to make and decorate sugar cookies, I decorated these 50 sugar cookies in a full evening while kind of simultaneously making a couple batches of macarons. But in the next evening, I was able to pump out around 200 cupcakes. But I mean, if your passion is sugar cookie decorating, then I say do it. But just know that your back and your hand will probably hurt after doing that many pre-orders. While you're enjoying this very satisfying cookie decorating, I want to share with you how many ingredients I actually bought. So I think we went through about 5 flats of eggs, and I believe there's 32 eggs in every single container. We went through about 30 blocks of salted butter. I had pounds and pounds of chocolate for all of the cake pops. We also went through a huge thing of flour, and then we also went through another half of that flour. I believe it was 10 kilograms plus another 5 kilograms of all-purpose flour that we went through. And then I believe we went through about 10 kilograms of granulated sugar. We went through a lot of vanilla. I had my vanilla imported from Mexico, and I think we went through that huge 1-liter bottle that I had. And then we also went through tons and tons of buttermilk and heavy whipping cream. I also bought a ton of sprinkles, and when I was purchasing them, I thought, we're not going to make it through all of these sprinkles, but we actually did, and it wasn't like I wasn't using them sparingly on the cupcakes and the macarons, so I was surprised. We also went through 4 bags of Score Chippets, 3 large bags of frozen strawberries, and 4 family-sized packages of Oreos. I also don't think I've ever had that much almond flour ever in front of me before, because almond flour is so expensive. But I had about 6 large bags of almond flour, and we went through it all. And the committee at kind of the last minute asked me to make some Rice Krispie squares. I think they thought they would be good sellers, and they did end up selling out, but it was a little tricky making all these Rice Krispie squares while I had so many things on the go. Obviously, setting those macarons takes up a lot of space. Drying the sugar cookies takes up a lot of space. So it was a time trying to fit everything into this kitchen space. Admittedly, I did not know how this sale was going to go at all, because we have never done this before as a school. I mean, things have been sold during concessions and during the hot lunch program, but we've never done something like this before, where we were actually charging bakery level prices. So for 4 days in a row, this is what my trunk looked like. I would constantly be bringing in freshly baked goods, and then I would do sound check and costume check and all of those other things that a director does during a musical throughout the day. And then I would come home after we performed in 2 shows per day, and I would bake again until 1 in the morning. And I did have batters and things in my fridge all ready to go, but we still had to whip things up and make sure that things were baked fresh. And then I did have to start making the buttercream as I went, because I had run out of all of the storage of the buttercream that I had. We made sure that no new pre-orders could be inputted into the system 1 week prior to show day, and already I thought that the pre-orders were pretty successful. I think there were about 141 items that I was responsible for, and some of those things were 6 packs of cupcakes, for example, but I could not have predicted nearly selling out of cupcakes every single day. I think because I surround my family with cupcakes all the time, I always find that cupcakes don't really get eaten that much at my events, so I tend to go a little bit lower in numbers whenever I make cupcakes. But this time around, I definitely underestimated. Apparently, my school and children really love cupcakes. A little tip for you, especially if you live in a fairly warm environment, place your cupcakes in the fridge for about 30 minutes, especially if you're using something like Italian meringue buttercream. It'll help solidify the buttercream and makes it way easier for transport if you don't have clamshell containers like this. Some other things that I did in my baking kitchen to make things be a little bit more efficient is I always made my vanilla batter first and then I would go to my chocolate batter. That way I didn't have to wash in between. Saving dishes is a great thing to do, especially when you're limited on space and time. Another thing that I did was, because I was making Italian meringue buttercream, is I would keep one KitchenAid bowl solely for the Italian meringue portion, and then I would transfer it over to the other bowl to be beaten with the paddle and the butter. Because if you try to just remake buttercream in that Italian meringue, it will never whip up into Italian meringue because of the fats and oils in there. So then that way I didn't have to keep washing bowls and I could make the Italian meringue really, really quickly. And it's not one of those recipes that doubles very easily, and you also just don't want things coming out of your KitchenAid. So doing it in that way really, really saved me time. I was able to make a few batches, I would say 3 every 15 minutes or so. Now let's talk those numbers. So for the sugar cookies, we charged $5 Canadian each. For the cupcakes, $4 Canadian each. For the cake pops, $3.25 Canadian each. And for the dipped Rice Krispies, $3 Canadian each. For the macarons in a 6-pack, we charged $15 Canadian. And for the macarons as a single, we charged $3 each. Near the end of it, we really started combining a lot of the baked goods, and this actually helped for a quicker sale. People really loved having the variety all in one box, and they really liked not having to think, I think. And remember those failed macaron shells? Well, they were ground up, and then I was able to use them as a delicious topping on all of these cake pops. Now, you might be wondering, why is everything blue and it seems like Christmas? Well, the musical was Frozen, so that's why everything was Frozen themed, and I think this really, really helped with sales as well. So I don't quite have the numbers of everything that we made just because things are still being calculated, but I did spend around $700 Canadian on all of the ingredients and packaging. I think the part that I was most happy about was the fact that I really stuck to simple designs that looked pretty but were not difficult for me to make, and everything was kind of set into motion at the right times, so I had all of the right ingredients, and things made that could be made in advance were made in advance, and having that on the ready just made everything so much easier. This has definitely encouraged me to do this again next year, and I think I'm going to be even more well organized. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading whenever I feel like it, so be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!